It's Good Friday, and what a very good day it is. Hello, everyone. Pete Burak here, Vice President of Renewal Ministries, and today is Good Friday. And you're probably hungry. If you're doing it right, you're probably hungry. I'm a little hungry because we're fasting today. It's one of those special days of the year where we tell our flesh to be quiet as our spirit unites with the Lord in an offering of our physical hunger to hopefully release special grace upon us and our family and our intentions as we unite our suffering with our Lord's. Today is a very important day. I think you probably know that. And as I was praying about when Elizabeth told me that this video would come out on Good Friday, I thought, man, what do you say about Good Friday? I mean, what hasn't already been said? And so I just kind of was sitting with it, and I decided to read each of the gospel narratives of Jesus's crucifixion. And what I decided to focus on was not the whole part with Pontius Pilate and the scourging or the agony in the garden, but really just focusing on that moment when he is crucified. What does that moment look like? And so I read all four Gospels about kind of starting right in that, and they went out and crucified him. You know, they all kind of have a moment where there's a clear moment where Jesus is now on the cross. He has been nailed to the cross. He has been lifted up. There's a sign above his head. He is now publicly displayed for all to see. The full weight of the suffering and shame and culmination of all that has led up to that is right in that moment. And so I read all four Gospels just kind of saying like, okay, Lord, what do I share? And I have three things. And again, I'm not going to pretend like these are going to be particularly revelatory for most of you who are watching. Based on what we know about you and your life, you probably have read these gospel messages before. You probably have meditated on the crucifixion of our Lord before. You've probably spent time fasting on this day and being prepared for the grace of entering into Good Friday. So maybe these can just be considered three reminders as we go through this very, very special and very, very good day. First reminder is Jesus on the cross is revealing something completely unique in the kind of human experience as it pertains to understanding God. And what is he revealing? He's revealing that our God suffers with. Our God has the capacity for indescribable empathy. We do not have a God who is far off. We do not have a God who is separated from our experience. In fact, Jesus on the cross, more perfectly than any of us could possibly do, more completely than we could possibly imagine, experiences, not just like hypothetically, but truly experiences the condition of humanity, the effect of sin and death, the reality of a fallen world. The full, complete, total experience of a fallen creation is experienced by Jesus on the cross. So when we experience our version of that, when we go through our life with the very real sufferings that we will experience, this is not a hot take. We all suffer. You suffer, I suffer. We all have different ways that we suffer. Emotionally, physically, spiritually even. There's a suffering that is baked into the human experience. But what we see with Jesus on the cross, and one of the reasons why Catholics, we keep Jesus on the cross, is to be able to look at someone who looks like us, who is us, suffering, and to be reminded of the tremendous empathy of God, that he saves us not distant from our suffering, but he actually saves us through the experience of suffering. Think about how dramatically different that is. This is not just a God who waves a magic wand and everything is made right. No, our God, the true God, the one God, the only God, enters into our suffering and transforms it, and actually through the suffering redeems the world. Now, every suffering has the potential to be redemptive. Now the experience of suffering is not just a negative, but actually the potential for a positive. There's good that can come from every suffering because he looked the most intense, complete suffering in the eye and redeemed it. So the first reminder is when you look at Jesus on the cross, let your heart be warmed. Let your spirit be enlivened to say, God gets it. He gets it. He understands what we go through because he's entered into it with us. So that's reminder number one. Reminder number two, the three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all have a very important detail that, for whatever reason, just hit me as I was reading them. They all talk about the veil of the temple being torn, which is such a fascinating. I mean, think about how dramatic that must have been if you were in the temple or near the temple or even just heard about it later. This idea that like the veil which separated the Holy of Holies from the rest, so the clean from the unclean, the holy from the unholy, the redeemed God from the rest of us, is now ripped in half for all to see. The Holy of Holies has now spilled out into the whole world. And it's such a visceral, like tangible evidence of God being like, now there is no separation between me and you. Nothing can stop my love, my life, our relationship. There is no veil between me and you. We see each other clearly, and I have, like, the way I was thinking about it is I almost had this image of like God being like behind the veil going like, now it's time for me to come out. Like the Holy of Holies is spilling out into the world. Like he's been like cooped up almost. There's like this desire that God has had from the very beginning to walk face to face with us. I mean, this is what he did with Adam and Eve. He didn't intend a veil. He didn't create us with a veil. The veil was erected to protect us from his holiness. Our veil was erected because of our sin. We didn't have the potential to bridge the gap between him and us. We are unclean because of sin, and he is perfectly clean. And so there had to be some sort of separation. There had to be a go-between. There had to be something that kind of protected us from his holiness. And now through Jesus on the cross and in his death, God's like, good, I can finally rip that down. Now there is no separation, friends. I mean, and Jesus begins that process in a particular way the night before at the Last Supper, where he gives his body and blood in the Eucharist to those in the upper room. And the whole perpetuation of the veil being torn is through the sacraments and through the life of the church, where we come into the Holy of Holies every time we enter Mass. There is no veil. We literally consume him. And because of the lack of a veil, we are transformed by him. And then not only is there a lack of veil in our temporal experience, but then there's a lack of a veil for our eternal experience. For those of us found in him, resurrected in him, living in him, being fed by him, being transformed by him, being holy because he is holy. Now at the end of our life, we just are entered into the fullness of that holiness, the completeness of that relationship. And the veil is gone forever. And the only veil that we ever would experience moving forward with between us and God is one that we put up now through sin. We, in some kind of crazy way, have the potential to separate us from God. We have the potential to be like, no, I want to be veiled. But as any of us have ever experienced the forgiveness of the Lord or conversion, any veils that we put up, he's more than willing to keep tearing down. Right? Like any veils that we put up and say like, oh, I don't want you, Lord. As soon as we turn back and say, no, yes, I do want you, he goes, it's gone. We're back. The veils keep being torn over and over and over again. I actually had a thought of that of like with confession, of how I just despise when I can't be face to face with the priest. It drives me nuts. Sometimes it's just like how it is, like sometimes confessionals are set up where the only way you can do it is through some sort of screen. Like that's a veil that doesn't need to be there. I'm coming into the presence of God. He's dealing with my veils. Why do I need some sort of screen between that? And I get it. It's, there's all sorts of reasons for that. But the point is, like, confession is when Jesus rips down the veils over and over and over again. Okay, and then reminder number 3 is we can be saved all the way up to the bitter end. Isn't that amazing? That on the cross, Jesus continues to look for the hungry heart. I mean, I know that when I'm suffering, I can barely think of anything other than what I'm suffering. Like, my capacity to care about anyone other than myself when I'm dealing with some sort of suffering is like, it's a real struggle, even with like children or people I love, people who are good to me, and even people who are taking care of me, right? I mean, how many times have you been sick and you snap at your caregiver, right? You're like, I feel sick, so I have permission to treat you terribly or not desire your good or whatever. Here's Jesus suffering more than any of us can possibly imagine. And in his suffering, he's still looking out, saying, who's hungry? Who wants me? Who believes? And we have the good thief and the bad thief, and the good thief is like, I want in. And Jesus is like, good. Up until the very bitter end. The guy is literally on a cross dying next to him, and Jesus is like, good, let's bring you into the kingdom with me. And man, there is always hope. It's always worth pursuing, praying, speaking the truth until that last breath. Like, no matter how dire it looks, no matter how dark it looks, no matter how far somebody seems to be from God, for as long as they're alive, there's hope that they can repent and believe in the gospel. There's hope that they could hear those wonderful words of, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus demonstrates the depth of his love and the depth of his mercy, that even while he is being put through and he's submitting to the ultimate suffering, he notices the soul that wants to be saved, the human being who's still alive, who's still drawing breath, and in the last moments of his life goes, you're one of mine now. And what's so amazing about it is literally the thing he's unlocking on the cross, he's now extending to that thief. Like, today you will be with me in paradise is only possible because Jesus on the cross right at that moment. Like, he couldn't have said that actually to anybody else before that, because they wouldn't have been in paradise yet until his death and resurrection. And so for Jesus to be like, I know exactly what is happening right now. I know exactly what's about to happen. And my brother, you're about to experience it with me. And up to the moment of your death, the Lord has the potential and is extending a hand to say, do you want to be saved? So on this Good Friday, just remember that we have a God who suffers with. Remember that the veil is torn, and remember that there is always the hope of salvation for sinners up until the moment of their death. So may the Lord walk with us very closely today. May he be tangible in your life today as we suffer with him, as we walk with him, as we acknowledge him, as we glorify him, as we worship him, and as we just participate in this most special of good days, this Good Friday. God bless you.